So to discuss the likely impact of all of this on News Corporation, we're joined now by leading media analyst and economist Peter Cox. And Peter Cox is in Sydney this morning. Peter Cox, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Virginia.
Look, let's stay with the BSkyB thing for just a moment, because it was believed that this was pretty much going to go through unscrutinised too closely. But now, Jeremy Hunt, the Culture Secretary, who had given preliminary approval to News International taking over the rest of BSkyB, has now announced that Ofcom, the communications regulator, is going to have to look at whether News Corp is a fit and proper organisation to hold a broadcasting licence. What does that mean?
Well, I actually don't think there is a fit and proper requirement on this front, so I don't think it's a great effect. What you've got to look at from Rupert's point of view is, though, how does he manage this crisis? The first stage was sacrificing the news of the world. That now everybody's concerned about, does he lose his BSkyB deal? I don't think the BSkyB deal really matters. He can afford to lose that to protect the organisation further up the stream.
And you think he would want to do that? You think he might actually want to take this particular iron out of the fire?
Well, you've got to understand, BSkyB, he already has management control. He always has had. Sam Chisholm, the Australian, ran it for many years. His son's been running it for the last few years. So, not that they don't have management control of it. The idea was that they would be able to take over the remainder of it, get the cash flow, and that would work well on their books. But if they don't do it, they don't lose anything from that either. So it can be a sacrificial lamb that News can make when this gets serious, and it's getting more serious by the day.
Yes, and let's take you back to your original observation about managing this, about controlling this. Normally when a corporation has a crisis of this dimension and of this magnitude, it actually can at least hunker down and see the dimensions of it, see the bottom, as the phrase goes. The problem surely for News International is that it can't see, or maybe it does know, the bottom of all this right now.
Look, the real problem they've got is this, that their chairman is a very unusual chairman, an extraordinary chairman. He has driven and made this business. And what was his first adventure into the UK was News of the World. This is a chairman who, over the years, has always been happy to go onto the production floor to help with the setting of what the headlines would be, what the photos, what the layout would be. This is a man who understands his organisation completely on the newspaper side. If this had happened on the movie side, Rupert wouldn't. He could have just made himself distant from it. But on the newspaper side, he knows everything about running of his newspapers. So this is a difficult one now, because remember that News Limited is on attack in a number of countries on a number of different levels. So the consideration now has to be given, is the Murdoch name now a liability for News Limited? Do the independent directors of News have to now look at it and say, wow, do we look at the succession of Murdoch and the family as they saw it and say, is that really best for this company? He only holds a minority of the shares, the equity in the company, and I think that is something that the independent directors may have to address over the next few months. Just
before we get to the independent directors in a bit more detail, can I just stop you on a previous point you made? Are you suggesting there that there's really nothing that would go on in the newspaper side of the organisation or News International that Rupert Murdoch would not be aware of?
It would be very hard for any of us who have followed Rupert throughout his career and understood the way that he has run those papers, how he has been the leader in the world at doing this. He must have surely been aware of it. We can see with the protection that he's giving to Rebecca Brooks, as he says, he's looking to protect her. 200 jobs can go for News Limited, but he's looking to protect the one person. Is that because she knows where the bodies are buried? One has to presume so. She was there in the control in the years when these activities were going on. So to my way of thinking, it's protection up the organisation that they're now worried about.
All right. Well, look, returning to the independent directors and also the institutional investors in News Limited right around the world. I mean, there's long been the sense that if Rupert Murdoch is still there, if he's in charge, then everything's okay. But if he's taken out of the picture, not so much loyalty and fealty would be shown to the rest of the Murdoch children and the Murdoch family. Do you agree with that?
Look, I think so. And the problem with this one is that the family have been involved. If you take the daughter Elizabeth and her production company, that News Corp paid an incredibly high price recently to buy her company out. They've had shareholders that are taking legal action on that front because they think this is unreasonable. You've got to look at Fox News in America. Been incredibly successful for Rupert. What's it been successful at? Providing an ideological right-wing approach anti-Obama in America. It's made them a lot of money, but also made them very unpopular with the government and parts of the country. So he's got problems there. Coming back to Australia, he's got problems here as well. You know, we went through where he had another group of rogue operators in his organisation, and that was with the Melbourne Storm in the football. Now, are there just rogue operators all over the organisation? Is there no control? One has to look at this factor.
All right, well, we're just stepping back for a moment then. How do you imagine, knowing what you do about Rupert Murdoch, he attempts to take control of this situation and to manage his way through this crisis, or can he not?
Well, I think his approach would be, news of the world goes, if he has to, you know, the inquiries that the Prime Minister's announced, and let's face it, this has got right to the top levels in Britain, as you're showing again this morning with new news developing there, that this has gone right to the top of politics in the UK. If he has to, he may have to walk away from the Sun newspaper as well, perhaps even the Time. But, you know, if he did, this is an organisation that has US $35 billion revenue. The newspapers in England are only a couple of £100 million.
But you're not suggesting there that those titles would close, that he might have to walk away from them? You're wondering?
I'm wondering if he may have to sacrifice that. I certainly think he will be there saying, gee, I don't want to give up on the BSkyB one. You know, that's what I'm fighting for. At the end of the day, it doesn't cost them much to walk away from the BSkyB deal. They still control it. That is their baby. So I think they're the sacrificial lambs that can be made. The interesting thing will be to see what executives in their organisation, whether his son, whether Rebecca Brooks, whether himself, whether they become sacrificial lambs to the overall story as well.
And just finally this morning, do you believe that there are any individual or particular ramifications from all of this to the Australian operations?
Well, the most immediate one, as we know, is that Rupert here has taken a very strong line against the NBN in Australia. That has put him offside, certainly with the Minister and presumably with the Prime Minister. He's trying to do a deal at the moment where he would take over the international, which the ABC is competing with, the Australia International Service. Look, you know what? If he didn't get that, it's not major money, but he would like to get that. So it is having ramifications in Australia as well.
Peter Cox, good to talk to you this morning. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Virginia.